Jamie Goddard. Thank you for joining me on NRL Fans WA.
G'day, Jimmy. Thanks for inviting me, mate. Sorry it's taken a while to get there, but we're now talking.
That's it, mate. And I really appreciate you giving me your time, buddy. With your career, mate, you've had a pretty good career. Played 160 first grade games. Started off with Gold Coast, then they were Seagulls. Then they went to the Chargers. Then you moved down to North Sydney and then the Northern Eagles. Played a couple of representative games as well for Queensland. Obviously during that ARL Super League battle. With your career and stuff, mate, is there a piece of advice or someone that shared some information with you that you've taken through your career, through your life, that's made you into, a better husband, father, person that you are today?
I guess, I don't know, part of your question there was, I don't know, am I giving anyone any advice? The only advice that I could give from a personal experience in trying to pursue anything is don't give up, dream big. And, I come from a small mining town in Mount Isa, far north west Queensland. I started playing footy when I was 13, so I was a little bit late compared to a lot of guys. And then State of Origin, was huge. I guess the first game was 1980, so Mount Isa loved their rugby league, and I was fortunate enough to start footy as a young fella. I was always small. I wasn't naturally, I wasn't a natural rugby league player, but I was really fit, I guess. Even at home in Mount Isa, I'd run up hills. It was 40 degrees, and I just loved training. And I took that sort of work ethic when I did go down to the Gold Coast as a 19-year-old. I wanted to be the fittest in the club and just train hard. And then, you sort of the never give up attitude. I was fortunate enough to represent Queensland in under 17s and then again in under 19s in 1991. So got to play as curtain raisers in those, 1989 and 1991 as a teenager. And then to see what it was like to watch the big boys play, it gave me a goal and one day a dream to one day play for Queensland, and I was fortunate enough to do that along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Has anyone given you any advice that sort of stands out to you though?
Grant Bell was a big influence on my career earlier on. He was the North Queensland Rugby League director before the Cowboys. And then he got the Gold Coast under 21s job, and he got myself down and Kevin Campion from Serena, another North Queensland boy, and he helped us do extras, work on our game. So he basically converted me. I was more of a sort of halfback lock, but I was small, so he suggested that I go to number 9, play hooker. Yep. And Belly, along with Billy Johnson back then, who was our trainer at Seagulls, basically I had to relearn how to pass from the ground, skills of getting out. So Grant Bell, he was tremendous in a lot of the juniors, and then he obviously went on to be the inaugural Cowboys coach. Had a big influence on the Cowboys in the early days. So Belly's probably been one of our, mentors. Good fella, hard worker. He would put so much time back then into video sessions, and we used to hate it, but he was ahead of his time, Grant Bell, a really good coach.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome to hear, mate. It takes a mentor like that to sort of, with the young guys, to be able to drive them. If you were, I guess, playing that 13 or halfback role, you sort of have other people in your way, whereas he transformed you into a hooker, dummy half, giving that other option, that other avenue to go down, which ended up making your career in a sense.
Yeah, and I guess also there was, there was an opportunity when I made the Queensland 19s. I had a few clubs, not a lot, but I had an offer from Canberra and also St. not St George, but Illawarra back in those days.
Yeah.
And Wally Lewis come up to Mount Isa and met my family and the King of Queensland, mate. So when you got the King coming up, that was pretty exciting as well. He was the first grade coach of the Gold Coast, so he had an influence as well. But Wally was is the greatest 5'8" that Australia's ever seen, I believe. And to get the opportunity to play under the King, who'd knocked that back?
Yeah, exactly. Was he still playing when you arrived at the Gold Coast Seagulls?
Yeah. That was his last year. So I got to run on with him off the bench once. So, once again, just his presence, and Wally, I guess at the time, now that we know, with his medical condition, I think explains a few things back those early days. Like we look back now and, as I said, a few things are explained a bit better now that he come out with his medical condition. He passed out live on Channel 9 News in Queensland. No one knew what was going on inside Wally's head. So, he carried that and hid that for years by himself and his wife, his family, only close families to know what was going on. So he was dealing with a lot behind the scenes that we knew nothing about.
Yeah. I think, for people like yourself who have, excuse me, grown up watching him and you got to play with him, be coached by him, to hear that news, it would have been pretty devastating. And, like you said, explained a few things, but, the devastation of hearing, that medical condition that he's got would have been, pretty bad.
Yeah. And look, he's good now. We, when Townsville held that first State of Origin during those COVID years, Steve Jackson, who was at the Gold Coast in the 92 and still a great, you talk about mentors, he was one of, coming from his Canberra days up to the Gold Coast. He took me under his wing as well as Kevin Campion, and we used to train with Jacko a lot. So getting back to that State of Origin, Jacko actually organised through Gene Miles for QRL a reunion or a lap of honour for all North Queensland boys that had played for State of Origin. So we all flew up there, and Jacko organised for Kevin Campion and myself to fly into Mackay, where Jacko lives, and then we drove the 4.5 hours, 5 hours from Mackay to Townsville on State of Origin Day. And getting back to where I'm leading with this, we caught up with Wally, and it was like time hadn't passed. Wally was, happy, smiling, joking, and it was pretty cool. It was like the old Seagulls boys from 1992 catching up in Townsville at a State of Origin eve. Was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that would have been so cool.
Mate, it was a great day. Great day. All the other guys from North Queensland that played Origin, we all sat together. We all did a lap of honour. Russell Bowden, who's another Mount Isa boy, Scotty Prince was there. It was a really, really good night and a special night. Unfortunately, history shows, I think it was 74-0 or something like that the Blues beat us. So
yeah.
We didn't really put on a good show. Mind you, that whole series, I'll just take a guess, but I think the final scoreline might have been something like 160 to 20 in favour of the Blues. So it wasn't a pretty series that year for us.
Yeah. That wasn't the best series for us at all.
No.
As you can see, I'm a Broncos man, so I'm a Queensland supporter. So
yeah, I saw that, mate. Yeah.
When the Gold Coast Seagulls were around, they moved over to the Chargers. What happened there? I've tried to do a little bit of research. I've sort of missed what actually happened, how they went from the Seagulls to the Chargers. Did they go from like a sort of, I guess, a bankruptcy thing and someone bailed them out and decided to change the name, or?
Yeah. So the Gold Coast, Seagulls Rugby League Club in Tweed Heads, that was the football club. Seagulls were going through a tough time back then. I think mainly because poker machines were then brought into Queensland. So they were going through a bit of a financial difficulty. So they basically handed the license back into the ARL. There was a local guy called Jeff Muller who tried to get that license under the Gladiators, Gold Coast Gladiators. That was another one. But Jeff Muller, with all due respect, the ARL didn't give it to him, and they became the Chargers. So the Chargers was basically ARL back then, and that's when they were born. During those early years, 96, 97, 98. 98, we come back together. It was a full comp. So then the following year, Adelaide Rams and the Gold Coast Chargers were basically sacrificed to reduce the numbers. So they still had money in the bank, but it was part of a deal between News Limited and Channel 9 or Fairfax that the Rams go and Chargers go to get those numbers down. So, yeah.
Because there was a couple other clubs as well. Obviously, the Western Reds were part of that as well. They disappeared. The South Queensland Crushers. There was a fair few clubs, and I think even the North Sydney Bears. I know that they were going through some tough times at the time, but they were on the brink of getting kicked out too. But the Western Reds and stuff, and the South Queensland Crushers were also, I think, that sacrificial lambs, the Chargers and the Rams. Like, and I hear that argument all the time. When I'm talking to people about the Western Reds coming back, or Perth team coming back, they always go, "Oh, they've had their chance. They stuffed it up. They shouldn't be allowed back in." Well, you've already mentioned once that Gold Coast has come back in, and then the third time with the Titans now. So, if the Titans can, obviously being in Queensland and on the Gold Coast, they're going to have a huge following and all that sort of stuff. But if they can do it, why can't any other team like the Adelaide Rams or the Western Reds or whoever it is?
Yeah. Look, I totally agree, and obviously, I played for the North Sydney Bears. I was pretty pissed off with how that turned out. When I left the Gold Coast, I did a little bit of researching around with my manager on where we didn't want to get burnt again. The Bears promised us that they were financial, they had plenty of money, and that was all smoke and mirrors. There was a few business decisions that last year that were just crazy. But where I'm leading to with this, and I don't know whether you'd like this, I had a beer with Greg Florimo and a couple other North boys on Monday watching the Super Bowl, and we got a North Sydney boys WhatsApp group. And Flo's not unrealistic. He's still heavily involved. He said, "Jimmy, even if we got to do something with Western Reds, whether it's the Western Bears or something, I'd be happy with that." That's what his words were. We just need an identity back. He said, financially, we probably won't be able to. There won't be a Central Coast Bears. He said North Sydney probably wouldn't be able to fund it. So we'd probably, to be smarter, we'd probably have to look at a joint venture with someone like, whether it's Perth or someone. So, and there is hope there. There's still a bit of Daniel Dixon's who's the CEO of the Bears at the moment, Rugby League Club. He's campaigning very hard to get a Bears side back in. Once again, I think Perth's got a spot to hold it without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think I've read up. There's a few non-negotiables that they want. The red and black, the Bears logo, in a couple of games at North Sydney Oval, and one of them being the main traditional rival between Manly and North. I was doing I've got another interview tomorrow, I think it is, or maybe today, with Robbie Kearns, and I was doing some photos and stuff of him, doing some research, and in the Super League days, the Western Reds were literally black and red.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we not go to give them, yeah, well, that's already part of the Western Australian identity as well, the
Yep.
black and red, and
Yep.
just go, yeah, well, that's fine. The Bears logo, that's fine. We just call them the
Yep.
Perth Bears or the Western Bears or whatever it is.
Yep.
And given the North Sydney Oval a couple of games a year, it does
Mate,
detract from
look,
us having it over here. But the fact of it gives that club an Eastern States identity and the supporter base over there, which people will flock in with memberships and stuff like
absolutely.
that. And yeah, you go to a home game down at Allianz Stadium or up at Suncorp or wherever, there's going to be Bear supporters there. So they don't care if it's a North Sydney Bear or a Western Perth Bears. It's going to be a
Yep.
Bears.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree more, mate. Yep, for sure.
Um,
Let's hope. Who knows?
yeah, mate. I'm hoping like I'll never not be a Broncos supporter. But if Perth get a team, I'll be one of the first people to buy a membership to it. And
Yeah,
I've
good
got
on
an absolute shit ton of kids here, so I've got 10 of them that live at home. So I'll be buying memberships for all of them as well. And it's for me doing that. It's to keep the Perth team here to show the interest that Perth's got. It's to keep the Perth team here for a future for our kids, and it's not just my kids, but the kids of WA. That AFL is not the only way to go. Rugby union is not the only way to go. There's other sports and other avenues.
Yeah.
And with the youth today, I've talked to a few people, with a lot of this stupid stuff that the youth are doing today. If they get into sports, like, when you were in a young kid, if you were in sports, you kept out of trouble because you had something to do. It's the same with me.
Yeah.
You don't mix with those kids that want to get into trouble because you're out, you've got training and you've got your group of mates and footy and they're pointing you in the right direction. So
yeah, mate, 100%. I train every day with a senior policeman here on the coast, and he just said, Jimmy, that the youth crime has just gotten way out of hand. Sports obviously one of the biggest ways to as you said, keep the kids on a path so they're occupied. But there's no respect from these a lot of the youth. I won't say everyone, but we all know that it's got out of hand, especially across the whole eastern seaboard. I don't know too much about Perth, but I still got family on the Gold Coast and even in Townsville area. It's just kids are running amok.
Yeah, it's pretty bad over here as well with that sort of stuff. But it's happening everywhere, and it is a shame. But I guess we'll jump off that subject.
Yeah,
we could talk for ages for that.
Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned that you went down to North Sydney, and then they joined with the Manly Warringah Seagulls. How was that transition for you? And I know even at that time too, you still had the Super League war. I mean, when you went down north, the Super League war was over, but still coming together, the two competitions coming back together, and then a year after you get to North Sydney, two teams who are rivals getting together. How was that situation for you?
Oh, mate, from a player perspective and point of view, we were fine. We trained hard. We still got along well. It was more or less the fan base. It was never going to happen. It was hard to try and get the North Sydney guys to come over to Manly as supporters. So it was really difficult I think the fans just didn't want to grab it, And you can understand, as we just said earlier, that, they both lost their team to be told they're now got to follow the Northern Eagles. So players, we didn't mind it, mate. We it was our job. So we got on with it. We trained up here on the Central Coast. We went down to Narrabeen for training and Brookvale Oval. I used to stay at Nick Kosseff's or Steve Menzies' place during the week with Mark O'Mealy and Paul Stringer and a couple of other boys up here. So, vice versa, when they'd come up, they'd stay at my place or whatever. So the boys all grabbed it, but it was hard to get the fans on board, which we totally understood for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it would have been a sad time to see North Sydney being kicked out. You just seen the Gold Coast team get kicked out of the comp at the time, and then the North Sydney Bears get kicked out. That would have been a pretty hard one for you as well.
Oh, it was, mate. And once again, then the big thing with that there was a lot of players that didn't get paid because the North went broke. So there was players that just didn't get their money, and then they had to go try and get another contract, whether they had to go to England or other clubs. So there was a lot of players that had families and didn't get the money, and that's even to this day. I hear some fans and people say, "Oh, X player did this and left us and went to Bulldogs or whatever," and I go, "Yeah, but the clubs are quick to terminate players." So you got the players have got to. I guess if sometimes they're given an opportunity, I support the players.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Got to talk about your Queensland, your 4 games for Queensland, mate.
Yep.
How was that getting that call up? Because you were involved in that, like we just discussed, the Super League war. So there was 2 competitions. How was that situation for you, as a like personally, seeing the 2 state of origins going on and you're getting picked for the ARL team?
Mate, to be honest, I know it was a split comp. Kev Campman, my best mate still, he played in the Super League Queensland team, so I was happy for him. I played in our games, the 3 games for us. And then, when the comp went back to one comp in 98, I got called in for the decider in the 3rd game by Wayne Bennett. And we won that series. But to get the initial call up in 97, once again, it was a dream come true. To us, it didn't matter what comp we're in, you're still putting on a Queensland jersey. I'll tell you a quick story. I roomed with a mate of mine, Jeremy Slosh, who played for the Gold Coast at the time. And Slosh is, to this day, still one of the tightest blokes in the world. He's still got his first dollar from his first contract. So back then, we used to get about $100 a day pocket money, spending money, right? So if you're there for nearly, call it 10 days, you get $1,000, which isn't a lot of money, but Sloshy used to get the envelope and he'd go home with that $1,000 envelope, not opened, and give it to his missus. Anyway, one night we're sitting in the room, we're watching while I put on a movie. And he said, "Jimmy, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching a movie." No word of lie, he rolled over, pulled his blanket over. He said, "I'm not watching it, you're paying for it in the morning." I said, "Oh, you're joking, Sloshy." He goes, "No, I'm not watching it. You can pay for that. I'm not watching it." Oh, mate, he's so tight. Fair dinkum. Yeah. They reckon he had a roommate that used to live with him, and the roommate used to keep putting the fan on in the room at night, and Sloshy would come in and turn the fan off every night. And then the roommate got the shits with him and had a go at him. He goes, "No, well, mate, we've got to save electricity, we're doing it tough." It's like one of the tightest blokes ever.
I know I've watched a couple of interviews with you, doing some research on you, and obviously the Queensland thing that comes up with you, the state of origin, is the fight with Joey. I know you get a bit embarrassed about it, talking about it, but it is one of those things that's in the state of origin folklore. How does that sit with you? That you're always going to be remembered, I guess, in that sense. Even though it's a 4-game career in the state of origin, but you're always going to be remembered in that arena.
Mate, yeah. To be honest, yeah, I do get uncomfortable talking about it, but it happened, and that was the era where we knew Spud Carroll is just mental. We knew he was going to start something as well, and going into that game, we were 2-0 down in the series, and Choppy Close said, we don't want to lose 3-0. No, we don't want to whitewash. Joey's obviously, he was one of their best players. He was playing 9 at the time, and Choppy just told us, "Don't cop any rubbish from anyone." And Spud started that fight. Poor old trying to think of his name now. He come on off the bench for Clint O'Brien, got knocked out, and I've lost it now. But he come on, and Spud knocked him out straight away in the scrum, the first scrum, and then we all had a few. Obviously, there was a few different brawls going, and then Joey had another go. And to Joey's credit again, even when we're walking up the tunnel, he wanted to keep going again in the tunnel. So that's what people didn't know and didn't see. Mate, he was a little bull terrier. He just wanted to keep going. So I give him credit for that. He certainly had a crack.
Yeah. And the good thing about it, I was listening to some interviews you did on the Matty John show and a few other ones that are on YouTube and stuff. That once it was over, after the game, you used to went and had a beer together, and it was what was on the field was done.
Yeah, mate. It all mate. What happens on the field stays on the field. So everything's fine. Was got his jersey at home, which is obviously an immortal jersey now. So I haven't got it framed, but it's in a suitcase there at home. So
yeah, that's awesome. I want to go into a little bit of a personal question with you, mate. I hope you don't mind. Mental illness, mental health is a big thing these days. Have you gone through a dark time in your life? And if so, how did you get through it? I mean, you don't have to give me what happened, but just how did you get through it?
Mate, to be honest, I've been pretty fortunate. So I've never really had to, I never had that mental illness. But the worst part, I guess, from a personal point of view, and this is just me, the hardest thing I found was when my career finished. I did my knee in Parramatta. Was my last game. We had 4 weeks to go in the semis. 4 weeks to go till the semis. But I was running the clock then. But at the time, I knew my knee was gone. And then it just sort of hit me. I drove back to the Central Coast that day, even though my knee was had it. I could still drive, but I rang my wife and I broke down basically, and I thought that would be the end. I was 32. I think I was 32 at the time. And then trying to work out, I still got 3 kids at the time. They were 3 young kids. Working out, okay, what do I do now? And then I was lucky enough. I was sort of preparing for that. I started a real estate course, but the hard thing was missing all the boys. Like every day, we'd go to training. We'd leave normally, crack of dawn, 5:30. We'd be training all day, and then some days we'd drive back to the Central Coast from North Sydney or Manly, and we'd stop and have a dinner or a feed at a pub together. Yeah. So missing that camaraderie between the boys, training together, living together, that was my biggest culture shock. Wasn't mental illness, but it was a struggle to get into a full-time job where you're dealing with people, and we obviously always had a routine with training, but it's a different kind of thing where you got to go to work. You got to, behind me there, I've got my suit ready to go on for open homes. Yeah. So going from doing what you love, footy, to then going into a job, that was my biggest struggle, and still is today.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I've had mates that have gone into, well, I know two mates personally from the Gold Coast that unfortunately took their lives. Eddie Fallon's a tremendous young hooker, really, really talented guy, but it just got to him. And then David Woods, big front rower from Canberra. Woodsy was the party of all of us. Always, he just used to love life, but we didn't know behind the scenes the demons that he was going through back then. So it's certainly something that you got to watch out for your mates, and when if your mate does talk to you, grab him and tell him how much we all love him. That's the hard thing. what you don't know what's going through people's heads, and you don't want to experience it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for the people that do watch this, if you grab your mates or your family member, whoever it is, it's when you're listening to them, it's not to judge them. It's just to take on what's on, and help them.
Yeah, it's as you just said, you don't know what's going through some of their I've got a real close mate that had a bit of troubles last year, and he's good now. So it's something we all got to, I guess, look after him. So
that's cool, mate. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. You mentioned that you're in the real estate business now, mate. What's if people want to use you to sell their house or buy a house, how do they get in contact with you, mate? What's the company?
Mate, I was going to say Google me, but you never know what pops up. No, but I'm on the Central Coast, Terrigal. Work at McGrath Real Estate, the #1 real estate in Australia. Actually, my son's just bought a property over in WA, investment property over there around Perth. So, I'm just on the Central Coast, Terrigal for McGrath. Another mate of mine, Tony Pillen, we're both partners together. So we make sure we have a good time. He had a good break over Christmas, and I'm going to flying over your way. I'm going to Perth. I'm going to Bali next week. So,
nice. It's just another suburb of Perth.
It is another suburb of Perth.
Exactly. It is.
Yeah. So
that's cool, mate. What besides for the real estate stuff? What else do you do, mate? Yeah, is there any other ventures that you're into, or?
We play a bit of golf. Mainly social golf. We hit the ball often. We have fun. We have a couple of beers. I just my eldest boy, who I just mentioned, he's just given me a grandson not long ago. So that's a new addition to the Goddard name. A little fellow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, he holds the name. So that'll no doubt take up a bit more of our time, so life's pretty good at the moment, Jimmy.
No, that's cool, mate. Well, congratulations on the grandson. That's awesome to hear. Keep on that Goddard name. Hopefully he'll make you proud and become part of the NRL as well one day. We'll never know.
Mate, you never know. And my other son's having he already knows what he's having. He's having a boy as well in June. So there's two of them going to be the same year, which is cool.
Well, there we go. Yeah. You could have two of them running around. They might play against each other. Who knows?
Exactly.
That's cool. Have you got any advice for these young kids or the people over here that are wanting your Perth team? Have you got any advice or anything, any words that you would like to share with them?
Sorry, advice for supporters trying to get a team, or?
Yeah.
Going back, as I mentioned earlier, going back to when I was living in the Isa as a junior, they were rallying to get a Townsville team, and this is before any digital marketing or whatever. So it's not advice I'm giving now, but this is what the town did. Like North Queensland and all the towns, surrounding towns like Mount Isa, the Northwest Star paper, literally everyone had to sign a petition, and they did it every Friday, and then they sent it on to back then it was New South Wales Rugby League. So the whole of the North Queensland region, and even including down to Central Queensland, which is around Rockhampton area, which they were trying to get a team as well, but North Queensland tapped into the locals. So I don't know now, I'm not a marketing guru, but I'd suggest not only focusing on the Perth, but the whole of WA, because you look at the Townsville now, what they've achieved with that state of origin up there a couple of years ago. It doesn't only focus on Townsville. I've still got family that drive 1,000 kilometres Friday night to Townsville to watch them play on Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, and then they drive home on Sunday to go to work Monday. So that whole region and the Perth area, and hopefully it is the Perth Bears, as we mentioned earlier. I don't think focus on Perth, but also the whole of WA, for example, and try and get them. I know you got the AFL is obviously huge over there with the two teams, but I'd try to focus on the whole area rather than Perth itself.
No, that's beautiful advice, mate. I really appreciate that. Buddy, that's all I've got for you today. I know you've got to get off to a home open. I really appreciate you giving me your time. And if you're ever over in Perth, mate, don't hesitate, give me a call. We'll catch up for a coffee or a beer. It'd be great to meet you one day. But yeah, Jamie Goddard, thank you for joining me on NRL Fans WA.
No worries. Thanks a lot, Jimmy. All the best, mate. Have a good weekend.
Mate. You have a good, you too, buddy.
When you're talking to him later.
I will, mate. Thank you very much.
All right, mate. Cheers. Bye.
See you, mate.